The reason Congress gets away with doing more than they have the constitutional authority to do is two reasons. We as a nation are constitutionally illiterate. And the second reason, because we elect representatives who do not honor their oath of office to uphold and defend the Constitution. Those are the two reasons. We don't know what the law is, and we don't elect representatives that are going to stand up and defend the law. The Constitution is only a piece of paper. And unless we know what the guiding principles are, and unless we're converted to those principles, then our Constitution cannot protect us from ourselves. This is I love Thomas Jefferson. He's got a lot of quotes. I love them all. But in my opinion, this is the quote of the century, in questions of power. Let it no more be heard of the confidence of men, but bind them from mischief with the chains of the Constitution. How many times do we think if we kick that person out and put that person in, we're going to solve our problem? Or if we kick that political party out of office and put this political party in office, we're going to solve our problem. Thomas Jefferson said, let it no more be heard of the confidence of men, but bind them from mischief with the chains of the Constitution. That's what our responsibility is. Now let's talk about the First Amendment and a winnable strategy. But of course, before we do that, let's read the First Amendment here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. What that basically is saying is they can't make it a crime. They can't put you in jail, and they can't fine you civilly for trying to argue your concerns. The problem, as I see it, is all three branches of our federal government and all levels of our city, county, and state and federal government have abandoned its purpose to protect our life, liberty, and property by grossly exceeding their limited constitutional authority. And this is done because all levels and branches of government are guilty of a conspiracy of tyranny because they have assumed legal authority without the willing consent of the governed. That is our problem. All branches of government have been working together to take away our rights, liberties, and freedoms. Is this a problem limited to just the liberal parts of our country? It's true even in East Tennessee. So let's talk about some non-constitutional check and balance remedies. Now the first is that we elect honorable men and women as our representatives. How's that, as Dr. Phil's known to say, how's that working for you? Not too good. Pat says not too good. All right, well, are we in agreement that that's not working very well? Okay. I'm going to ask a rhetorical question. This group, I probably know the answer, but does anybody believe that if all we had to do was get rid of the Democrats and put the Republicans in power, that would solve our problem?
Solve one problem.
Huh?
Would solve one problem and slow the pace.
Well,
Actually, this is a big thing. Because
It's not their job to
somebody's
solve
done
the
more harm to our sovereignty than Bush wanted.
well, let me go back to my original question. Where's the outrage?
inside.
They are totally destroying our currency, our economy, our freedoms, our liberties. Do you see them mad?
There was one, he said he lied.
Okay, well, you know, Okay. So let's just be realistic. The solution to our problem will not be to get the Republicans all into power. Because Thomas and Jefferson said, don't make that mistake. Let it no more be heard, in questions of power, let it no more be heard of the confidence of men, but bind them from mischief with the chains of the Constitution. I could say that 1,000 times. It would not be enough. I'm sorry, I get a little excited there. Now our second petition of redress of grievances is by appealing to our legislators by phone calls, letters, faxes, emails, or we can send petitions and pink slip campaigns. We can peaceably assemble. We can have tea parties and marches on Washington, D.C. How's that working for you? Seriously. Let me just share my thoughts on this. I believe that if you, any of you in this room, made a phone call, wrote a letter, sent a fax, signed a petition, went to a tea party, or marched in Washington, D.C., that you all deserve a round of applause. And I think you should give this. At least you were part of the solution. You did something, and that's a good thing. But again, what changed? Did any of that? I made a prediction in my Constitution class that if we had a juggernaut march in Washington on September 12th, that we could stop this from going through, because then we would only be a year away. I made that prediction. And we had 1.7 million people show up in Washington, D.C. Did it stop them? There was only tens of thousands there. Okay? So as much as we deserve credit, is that petition, is that working?
No.
Okay, so we've
It
got,
does slow down.
so the question is do we just need to have more of them and larger?
I think, and you're partly right, the problem is they're not listening in Washington, D.C. And where we need to win the war is not necessarily in Washington has been taken over by the enemy. It's now, I consider Washington, D.C. foreign occupied land. It's not what I know. Washington, D.C. doesn't represent America. It has not for a very long time. But what we can do with phone calls, letters, faxes, emails, petitions, tea parties, and all of that is do it at our state government. That's where we're going to win the war.
The third option is jury nullification, where whenever the government comes after you civilly or criminally, that an informed jury will say, we're not convicting. So if they pass the health care and they start putting people in jail for not buying health insurance, the juries could say, we're not sending people to jail because they did not buy health insurance.
Yes.
We could do that. That's a legitimate way to what they say is take the effects of the law out of, the law's still there, but the effects of it don't have any teeth to it.
If you have an informed jury.
Okay, so the problem with this is we don't use it. Well, you're talking a long time about why we don't use it, but it's not being used.